Hello everyone and welcome back to Coach Craig's Sports. Today is Friday, so this is going to be the Dollar Store Stack series. If you did not join me for last week's video, if you did not watch last week's video, this is the series where I go through trying to pick out cheap stacks for the week or some of my favorite stacks overall for the week that aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg. So we're not pairing Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins in this case because that's the most expensive quarterback and the most expensive wide receiver on the main slate. So these are going to be guys that you can put together, save you a little bit of money, and hopefully pay up at some other positions. We're going to start off with the DraftKings side. I have 6 different stacks combinations on the DraftKings side and 4 on FanDuel. That's just kind of the way it worked out with some of the pricing for the week. So the first one on the DraftKings side is going to be a Philadelphia stack once again. Jalen Hurts, $6,500. We saw him have a great week last week. He really didn't go up in price either, so that's a great potential quarterback, even if you just want to play him on his own. But then we got his wide receiving options. Once again, Devonta Smith, his price went up about $900. And then Jalen Reagor, his price went up about $300. Important to note that Zach Ertz is dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury. If he's not able to go, Dallas Goedert could be another option to stack with Jalen Hurts. But as you see, a quarterback for $6,500 and both of his top wide receiver options under $5,400 could open up some potential value elsewhere. You obviously don't have to play both wide receivers, but one of these two with Jalen Hurts could make a nice little stack for this week. They go against the San Francisco 49ers, who are struggling at that cornerback position. Then next up is the Cleveland Browns. So there is a ton of cheap options that you can mix with Baker Mayfield, the quarterback. $6,000 goes against the Houston Texans this week. Should be a decent matchup for him overall. They might not have to throw a ball a ton though too, so maybe Baker Mayfield's not somebody you end up playing, but it is a cheap stack opportunity. Donovan Peoples-Jones played over 80% of snaps week 1. Only had 1 catch though for 4 yards, so he's still at the flat minimum of $3,000. He's a guy that I like a ton this week as a punt play. I don't think a lot of people are going to be going after him. I think most people are going to be going after his teammate Anthony Schwartz at $3,300. $300 more. He's the guy that had more production last week, but he was not on the field for as many snaps. There is a chance that he does end up missing. Then you could look at Rashard Hollywood Higgins as well. In this case, he'd be another cheap play. I believe he's $3,000 as well. Then the 2 tight ends, you got Austin Hooper, $3,800, and then David Njoku, who was kind of one of the surprises of week 1 that looked pretty good, had a whole bunch of air yards, $3,600. These are all guys that are under $4,000 that you could potentially stack with Baker Mayfield and make some cheap stacks for less than $10,000 against what we assume going into the year would not be a very good Houston Texans defense. Then I'm going to go to the straight up opposite side of that game. We got Tyrod Taylor, the quarterback. He looked pretty good against Jacksonville week 1. Cleveland's defense is supposed to be pretty good this year. We haven't quite had enough data on that. Obviously, they play Kansas City week 1, so that's a hard measuring stick to tell. Tyrod Taylor at $5,500, though. That's a really cheap price for a quarterback. If he plays well, if he gets you 20 points, he's definitely going to be worth it. Now, you can stack him with a guy like Brandon Cooks, under $6,000. Had a solid week 1, even though he did not score. Nico Collins saw 55% of snaps in week 1, $3,200. Kind of a dart throw play there. He only had the 1 catch, though. Then Danny Amendola did not play a lot of snaps, but he was very involved in the game playing that slot role, $3,600. Could be a decent price for him as well. And then tight end Pharaoh Brown looked pretty good week 1, over 10 points, less than $3,000 at $2,900. He's dealing with a little bit of a shoulder and an ankle injury, so we'll see if he ends up playing. If he doesn't, then maybe you could look at Jordan Akins, but he's probably more of a punt play than anything at this point in time. Then next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, and this might be one of my favorite stacks this week. Joe Burrow's relatively cheap at $5,800. Saw him look pretty decent against the Vikings. Goes against the Bears that have a very poor quarterback unit overall. He's got some great options here. A lot of people are going to be going after Jamar Chase at $5,000 after the big week 1. So I think a good pivot off of that is actually going to T. Higgins, his teammate, who also had a strong week 1. Jamar Chase is probably going to be the guy that people chase. No pun intended there. But T. Higgins had a very solid game as well. He left for a little bit. I think it was 1 or 2 series with a little bit of dehydration and cramps. So if you look at the snap counts, it makes Jamar Chase look like he was far and away the leader. But T. Higgins would have been right up there with him if he didn't leave for that series or 2. Tyler Boyd, obviously in the slot, has some effectiveness too. He's probably going to play against Marquise Christian in the slot, which is a great matchup for him. And then TJ Uzoma, the tight end, $3,000. Bears defense has not been too good against tight ends this year or last year, so it could be another good matchup for him as well. But overall, there's a good amount of stacks that you could do here with Cincinnati. You could even pair two of the wide receivers with Joe Burrow. You could pair a wide receiver and TJ Uzoma at tight end. A lot of different options there, and I think it's going to be a pretty good one overall. Then we get over to the New England Patriots, and we got Mac Jones. He's $1,000 more than last week. Played very well. Had 39 pass attempts, 29 completions, 281 yards, and 1 touchdown. So there is a lot of upside there for him overall. Plays against the Jets this week, who have a poor defensive back unit as well. Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers looking like his two top options. And Nelson Aguilar's $4,800, a guy that I like quite a bit. Actually, for that price range, he's probably my favorite $4,800 player now that Will Fuller is not going to play due to personal reasons that he's not with the team. And then we got Jacoby Myers, $5,100. Not the greatest week one, but we did see what he did against the Jets last year on Monday Night Football, so that could definitely be a possibility. Jonnu Smith is questionable for this game. If he does not end up playing, Hunter Henry is definitely someone to look at as well. I just didn't put him on there right now because we don't know if Jonnu Smith's going to play or not at this point in time. Then last but not least, we have the Los Angeles Rams. We got Matthew Stafford, $6,400. Good price for him. The Indianapolis Colts are likely without Xavier Rhodes in their defensive back department once again, so that should favor this Los Angeles Rams team that looked very explosive in week one. Robert Woods, $5,700. Price down spot for him. He's definitely somebody that I'm looking at for this week, especially in GPPs. If I'm trying to stack some guys, you can probably play him and Cooper Kupp together if you really want to. Cooper Kupp, $6,000, had that monster week one. He does play in the slot quite a bit, and that's where Kenny Moore lines up. That will be the best corner playing for the Indianapolis Colts this weekend. So maybe that's a matchup you avoid. Pivot off to Robert Woods or Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson, $3,500. If he can get you anything close to what he did last week, that's going to be a steal at $3,500. You could look at Tyler Higbee too, Deshaun Jackson if you really want to, but they didn't quite make the cut for me. But with that being said, these are the 6 stacks that I do have for the DraftKings side. I think there's some pretty solid options here. If you guys have any questions about these, just run them by me. Definitely here to help you guys out. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to the FanDuel side. So like I mentioned previously, there is 4 stacks on the FanDuel side. And this is the exact same stack I was just talking about on the DraftKings side. So we got the Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford, $7,500. Not like a super cheap option at quarterback, kind of middle of the pack, but he is a guy that I like quite a bit this week. Robert Woods, you see, is more expensive on the FanDuel side, $6,500. Cooper Kupp at $6,200. And then Van Jefferson, $4,900, which is $400 more than the minimum. So some interesting options once again here with the Los Angeles Rams. Then we're moving back to the Cincinnati Bengals. Once again, Joe Burrow is $7,100. The minimum price that you're looking at probably for quarterbacks on FanDuel for a starter is $6,500. So he's about $600 above that. Pretty good matchup for him overall once again against the Chicago Bears. His receiving options are cheap pretty much as well over here. You'll see a little bit of bump in price just because of the price difference between $50,000 and $60,000. So Jamar Chase, $5,500. T. Higgins, $6,000. Tyler Boyd, $5,700. And CJ Uzoma at $4,700, which is $700 more than the minimum price for tight ends on FanDuel. So once again, there's a lot of opportunity here. I expect most people to be going after Jamar Chase, chasing Jamar Chase once again. So T. Higgins is somebody that I'm definitely looking at. Tyler Boyd, probably not as much on FanDuel just because half-point PPR scoring over there, and he's $200 more than Jamar Chase on FanDuel instead of being cheaper than him like on DraftKings. So I think you could definitely stack Jamar Chase and T. Higgins together in this game if you want to. T. Higgins definitely makes a lot of sense to me if you're trying to get off of that Jamar Chase chalk. Then once again, we have the New England Patriots, and we got Mac Jones, $6,800, so essentially $300 above the minimum price tag for your starting quarterback on FanDuel. A lot of potential value there once again that you could be saving money on. James White, the running back, I have him here. He had 9 points last week, so he is about $300 more than the minimum price tag for a running back. I don't expect him to have a great game against the Jets because I don't think they'll have to use him quite as much, but we'll just have to see. Important to note that Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson both fumbled in the first game, so maybe James White just gets a little bit more run. Maybe they're a little bit more comfortable with him. Then once again, we have Nelson Aguilar and Jacoby Myers, $5,800 and $5,500. This time, Jacoby Myers is the one that is $300 cheaper. So on FanDuel, probably looking at Jacoby Myers a little bit more, but I still like both these options against a pretty poor Jets secondary. Then last but not least, this is going to be one that I know a lot of people probably aren't going to like, but if you're playing in a big GPP, there's some decent stack options here, and that's going to be the Chicago Bears. They're going against the Cincinnati Bengals. Looks like Trey Waynes probably is not going to play once again the corner for the Bengals, arguably their best corner overall. So there is opportunity against this Cincinnati Bengals secondary. Andy Dalton, this is a revenge game for him. I know he didn't look great week 1, but most quarterbacks do not look good against the Los Angeles Rams. So Andy Dalton, $6,500 minimum price. And you guys might all sit here and laugh at me saying, oh, you're recommending Andy Dalton. Justin Fields is going to be the starter sooner than later. Yeah, that could be the case, but it's probably not going to happen in this game. Justin Fields might be involved with some of those packages that we saw last week, but Andy Dalton's still the starter at this point in time. If that does change, I'll leave a note below, and we can talk about it at that point in time. But I will say this about Andy Dalton. Sometimes when you least count on him, that's when he comes in big, especially in a little bit of a revenge game here against the Cincinnati Bengals. He did beat them last year with the Cowboys as well. There was a week last year that I played Andy Dalton and Michael Gallup, and I almost won a GPP because of it. So there is that upside there. There is potential there. It's not just like the whole media where Andy Dalton sucks. Andy Dalton's the worst quarterback ever. He's not. I can guarantee you that much. But is he a good starting quarterback at this point in time? That's a whole nother discussion for a different day. $6,500 is essentially the minimum price for a starting quarterback for FanDuel. Allen Robinson, $7,200. Not a bad price tag there. Should have a favorable matchup. Probably going against Awuzie for the Bengals. Darnell Mooney, $5,500. Another guy that I'm looking at quite a bit this week. Probably going against Eli Apple, who's pretty much been crucified as a bust his whole career. And then last but not least, we got Cole Kmet, $5,100. So $1,100 above the minimum for tight end. Saw a decent amount of targets week 1. Could have a favorable matchup against some of these Bengals linebackers. But with that being said, these are my 4 stacks for FanDuel as well. And once again, this is week 2 for the Dollar Store Stack series. Once again, I do welcome constructive criticism for the series. It is a new series, like I mentioned last week. If you guys would like to see anything different, please let me know. Definitely here to help you guys out. And that's the whole point of this series, is give you guys some cheap stack options to open up value elsewhere. And these are guys, if they hit in your GPP lineup, while you save money, you play some studs elsewhere. This is how you take down tournaments with some of these stacks, especially like when you're talking about Andy Dalton and Darnell Mooney, how many people are going to be stacking those two guys in a GPP? Like maybe 1% of people, if that. So there's ways that you can leverage your lineup, make it a little bit different, especially if you're playing in these big tournaments. If you're playing with 20 max, 150 max, there's lots of different ways to make your lineups unique. But with that being said, if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. It helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports. And that's one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your fantasy football teams, helping you with DFS, whether it's NFL or NBA. Covering NFL news, talking NFL draft prospects as we get closer to the 2022 NFL draft. And then with that being said, if you are a new or current subscriber who's yet to do so, also hit that notification bell down below. It's going to let you know every single time I post up a new video. And with that being said, Saturday's video tomorrow will be the starts and sits for the 30 remaining teams yet to play. That's a very, very good episode. And hopefully it's going to be a little bit shorter than last week, but I go through each team, each player, tell you whether I would start them or sit them with a relative context. If you guys have other start-sit questions, just leave them down in the comments below, especially in that video, and I will be glad to help you out as well. But with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. Hopefully you all enjoyed. And then last but not least, special shout out to each and every one of you watching today's video. I truly do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Definitely means a lot to me, and I hope each and every one of you have a great rest of your day.